All right. Welcome to another episode of The Close-Up, a part of the Orlando Magic HQ Network. I'm your host, Stephen Cameron. Today, we got a really fun episode. We got my main man, Philip Rossman-Reich. He and I have been talking basketball, covering this team for many, many years. So long that we are now friends, and we hang out and talk to each other whenever we're in town, and someone I consider a good friend of mine. So we have a really good conversation about this team. We do a quarter-ish season review, because the Magic have played 22 games. We talk about things that have surprised us on a team level, things that have surprised us on a player level, things we think this team has learned, things we think the front office have learned. It's been really good. And then we do an awesome game preview of the New York Knicks game that the Magic are playing on Tuesday for the NBA, for the last group play game of the NBA Cup. That could decide if the Magic are going to be a wild card team or just earn their way right into the quarterfinals. So really looking forward to that. It's a good conversation, and I hope you all enjoy it. We recorded this on Sunday, December 1st. The Magic played the Brooklyn Nets, where the Magic got their 15th win of the season. It was not a fun game. It's just a hard one to watch. The referees, where I'm not one to normally complain about refs, but it was just like everything was being called. Fouls were being called left and right. So there was just a ton of game stoppage. There was a couple of hard fouls where, people, like, they had to have longer pauses. It was just not a fun flow. The Magic offense was like very kind of clunky too. Shout out to the Brooklyn Nets defense. They played them tough. There was a lot of full court pickups, when the Magic were inbounding the ball. They did a really good job of breaking up their sets, like for the first half, like KCP, it's just guys were not getting their shots. They were not really taking their shots the way they needed to. KCP did actually hit his shots. He had a pretty good game. He went 4 of 9 from the 3-point land today. He had 16 points, team high of Goga had the team high plus minus, but KCP was 14 on the plus minus. Goga was a plus 15. It was just a clunky game, Franz still did Franz things. He almost had a triple-double. He went 29 and 8. And yeah, but it's one of those games, like, if you didn't watch it, you probably don't need to go back and rewatch it. It was a little clunky. Jonathan Isaac only played 8 minutes in the first half. He didn't play in the second half. Lot of Anthony Black, a lot of Jet Howard. It just was kind of a clunky game, but the Magic win, and that's all that really matters. So anyways, outside of the game that I've called clunky 5 times, let's get into the sponsors of this show, and then we can talk and have this interview with Philip Rossman-Reich of Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic. This podcast and Orlando Magic HQ is partnered with Believe Network, Believe Podcast Network, and because of Believe, they bring us really cool partnerships like BetOnline. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything sports betting. Every stat, matchup, breakdown, and even live odds and spreads to bet on during games. With the largest catalog of odds on everything from football, MLB, NHL, NBA, everything. They have props on everything that you can think of. When the game's over, head over to the online casino, get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with over 150 different slot games. I have not used any of the slot games, I'll admit, but I have been placing a good amount of sports bets this year, particularly on the Magic and on the NBA. I don't really mess too much with the NFL. I did a little bit over Thanksgiving. That was fun. I actually had a pretty nice little parlay hit. But I've been doing a lot of stuff with the Magic, which has been super fun. Check out a good over-under that I like is I really like Tristan Da Silva on the threes. Often he's at like 0.5, so all he's got to do is make one. Same with Anthony Black and Jonathan Isaac. They're all around there. Those are something I like to do a decent amount. Goga Bitadze on the rebounds and on the points. Those are typically decent numbers depending on the matchup. You have Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. His 3-point number is still at 1.5 for the over-under. He's starting to hit. That's a good one that you could probably start hitting on, which is really nice. So things to look at. Those are things that I've been interested in. Head over to the website today. Get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. The other person I want to shout out is our good friend Brandon Kravitz. Brandon Kravitz is on the zone. Catch Brandon Kravitz on In the Zone 5 days a week, talking all the hottest sports topics in Orlando and beyond, live on 96.9 The Game and iHeartRadio. Also, if you're looking for more Magic coverage, Brandon will be hosting an extension of his show on game days. It's In the Zone Game Day Magic from 6 to 6:30 every weekday that the Magic play a game. If that's not enough, catch bonus content and exclusive interviews about the Magic, sports betting, fantasy, and more on the Zonehead podcast. Download and subscribe to his podcast, The Zoneheads, wherever you're listening to us now. Also, check out our Patreon program. The last thing I'm going to sponsor, it's really good. We're having a lot of fun. We have an active community, links in the description, a lot of really good benefits. Check out and see if it's something that might be right for you. Now, let's get to this conversation with my friend, Philip Rossman-Wright of Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic. All right, everyone. Like I said, we got my good friend, Philip Rossman-Wright, friend of the show, been on the show many a times over the years. Philip, it is your first time this season, though. I apologize. We haven't actually had you on since the off season. Philip, welcome to the show. How you doing?
I am doing good. It is fun to be winning. Like it's just like winning at this rate. Like conceptually the Magic should win every game that they play, except for maybe like against Boston. But to actually like go into a game and be like, oh, they're playing with their food. It's fun. It's like, that's a good place to be.
Yeah. I mean, like today we're recording this December 1st Sunday after the Magic they won. It's a W. It was a very bad, gross, ugly game.
The less we say about that game, the better.
Yeah. I'm glad it's over, but it's like, it's nice that like, oh yeah, they still put out one of the ugliest games of the year, from a, playing standpoint and a refereeing standpoint. It just was not the game didn't have a good flow. There were really good moments from the Magic, but it's like, it's nice that this team is winning. You're right, not to get into the weeds about today's game, but it's just nice to get in and get some wins, and like this team is they're staying afloat. I think you and I all agreed, there's a lot of us that were like, Paula's going down, we got to stay around 500. The team's got to stay around 500. Well, they've definitely done that. They're 15-7. They've more than doubled their losses, which is amazing. This conversation I want to have with you today, Philip, is kind of like we're at 22 games into the season. We're a little bit past the quarter mark, so this is the quarter-ish check-in. So I'm going to start this off with a question to you, and just be truly honest with us. What is something that going into the season was not on your radar that we are seeing as a team level that is happening on the radar? That has surprised you?
Like team level or just
team level, not player level. We'll get to player level question later.
We'll save the player level. Yeah. I mean, the player level thing I'm thinking of is probably the team level. Yeah, I think we know that one.
Yeah.
Honestly, like this is gonna sound like I'm starting with the negative, and it's like
starting with negatives. Let's go.
It's the biggest area that the Magic could still improve. I love the looks that they're getting from three. I love their process of getting 3-point looks. I love that they're taking more threes. They were 29th in the league in 3-point field goal attempts per game last year at around 29 or like 31, 32. And I thought they needed to get that up to like 35, 36 into the upper 30s. I think they're averaging 36 or 37 right now. They spent a good chunk of the first quarter of the season leading the league in corner threes. I think they're down to like third or fourth most corner threes per game. They're like fourth or fifth in terms of like wide open threes, whatever you want to say about the NBA.com, about NBA's player tracking and how they measure a wide open three, or how they measure, the closest defender being 6 or more feet away. They're obviously being allowed to take some of these shots because they're missing so many. But you're not going to win in this league if you don't take threes. Some of it is just a math problem. The Magic just need to be around the same number of threes as their opponent. You look at a game like Sundays, the Magic shot 25% from three. They made, I think, 7, but Brooklyn made 8. You can live with that. You could be fine with that. And the Magic actually give up the fewest 3-point attempts per game in the league, I believe, or they're top 3 in that, top 2 in that, or something like that. I really love the Magic's process of getting threes. And I think, losing Paolo Banchero like hurt a ton in that actually.
Obviously, yeah.
Because like Jalen Suggs was just a merchant for threes off of Paolo passes. And with him on the ball a little bit more and Franz being a good passer, but not being a Paolo level passer at times, Suggs hasn't gotten the same looks from threes and his percentages have obviously dropped significantly because of that. But I might be alone on this island. I think if the Magic keep getting the quality of 3-point shots that they've been getting, their offense is going to be fine. Now, is it going to be like the best offense in the world? No, it's going to be league average. But with the way they defend, they only need league average. And I think that I think that they have the right thought processes. I think if they keep doing what they're doing, they're going to end up in a good place at the end of the season.
You know what's great about that, and I just want to comment on your little bit about like the Magic offense and where they should be getting. They're 22nd in the league right now with 100, and that sounds bad. Well, that's amazing because a week ago they were like bottom 5.
They're 29th or 28th in the league in 3-point field goal percentage. Yeah. They're just missing shots.
That's okay. And that will come. And I think we both agree. We all agree. You start making threes, you're going to start climbing the ranks a little bit. But we're already seeing some improvements with this team just continuing to grow a little bit. There was a few weeks ago, they were like literally the 30th ranked offense. Then they jumped to 29th. Then they've jumped to 28th. I hadn't checked since they were like 28th. Now they're at 22nd. And like, that's a nice jump. You know, they're starting to find ways to score more points. You know, obviously there's some really big contributions from players like Franz, and Mo Wagner's been on a wrecking streak. And, you know, KCP's starting to find himself the last couple of games. There's been some good momentum the last couple of games, which has helped them make a little bit of a jump. But I think this just goes to your point even more. They start making more threes. Because again, they're getting good looks. I was talking to Josh Robin, or not Josh. Who was I talking to? Not Josh Robbins. Sorry.
Cohen?
Josh Cohen. Yeah. And he was pointing out that, or maybe it was a post that he made, but like the Magic. No, sorry. It was one of those random like stat.
Okay. Like the Stat Muse people. Yeah.
Stat Muse people, or one of those groups. I forget which one it was. But I asked them, give me something positive about the Magic's offense. And they said the Magic get the 5th best looks in the league. And so it just could, you know, proves your point. Like, they're going to continue to get good looks, ideally. You know, teams are sagging off of them a little bit. They're letting them shoot, but that's okay. The shots are going to start falling even more at some point, right? Like, you know, Kentavious Caldwell is finally hitting shots. We hope that will continue. Gary Harris, we hope he will start to find his shot. Cole Anthony, when he gets in the game, we hope that he starts to find his shot a little bit more. There's just some guys we hope to find, like Suggs should find his shot a little bit more, I would think. So you're right. They're not going to be a top 10 offense most likely, but I think, again, I agree with you. I think league average is probably where they can get as these shots start to land a little bit more. The offense creeping up to 22nd is something that I'm like kind of my answer to that question. It's been really fun to kind of see them just grow during this time period. It's not pretty by any means, but like, cool. You're getting a little bit, you're finding ways to score, which is nice. The other thing that I've been impressed with team wide is just Mo's ability to get a little bit more experimental with the lineups than I think he has in years past. We're seeing younger players get bigger responsibilities and thrown into the fire a little bit more. Jett Howard's been playing a bit more meaningful minutes, you know, because coach lost faith with Cole Anthony for a little bit. Obviously, Anthony Black is taking a huge step right now. We're all really psyched on that. Right now, we're seeing Mo Wagner we're seeing Wendell Carter Jr. and Goga in the starting lineup for 3 games in a row. That's like, you know, experimenting that I'm not sure we would have seen a year or two ago when Goga also was playing awesome and Wendell Carter came back from injury. Granted, it does help to have the flexibility without Paulo to have that experiment availability. You know, if Paulo was there, we wouldn't be seeing this most likely. You know, Tristan da Silva, again, being asked.
We saw Isaac defend Joel Embiid, which I did not think he'd be ready for this year.
I just think we're seeing coach experiment a little bit more with his lineups, and it's been a little bit more. It's been fun. It's been encouraging,
and I think that builds on another like really important point through the first quarter of the season is this team looks and feels like a team that's been to the playoffs before.
Yes,
like there is maturity, there is poise, there is focus and purpose to everything that they do. Like they're sitting there. They told us they want to be a 4 seed, have home court advantage. They told us how important that was. And it's one thing to like say it, but they're going out there and doing it. And you know, we talk all the time about how you need some playoff scars. You need to just experience the postseason. And we wondered, like, okay, it's one thing for all the players to say, like, this, and this, after that first playoff experience. But a lot of teams, that first playoff experience, they come back and they're like, oh, we know what to do. Like, we're sitting back pretty. We will just get back there and it's so easy. It's just like, no, everybody came back like more dialed in and more focused and like treating all these games like fairly important and knowing how to pace themselves, but also like treating these games as vital to that goal and that dream. And I think that is a huge statement of their growth as well. And it's something I know that the coaches have looked at as well.
Well, and I think it also helps too. I mean, like, you're right. We've all seen some maturity growth with the players and how they've approached it and what they've learned. Like, I think you're 100% correct there. But, they also brought in Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who's been to the playoffs and won multiple championships as a starter and knows what it takes to get there. They brought in Corey Joseph, who's been to the playoffs multiple times. I can't remember if he's actually won it. Was he on the Warriors team when
I think he was on the
Raptors team?
I think he might have been on 2019.
Yeah,
I'm not
okay.
Sure. I'm not sure. But anyways, like, everyone talks about how important he's been.
Yeah. And it's like they're finally starting to get legit veterans around these guys that have experience that match the experience that they're starting to get. And I love that for this team. It's really, really fun. So similar tone. I think the easy answer is Franz. So let's both agree not to say Franz for this. But what is something that has surprised you from a player perspective about this team 22 games into the season on our quarter-ish mark?
Before we do that, and as a way to stall as I come up with my answer, like,
sure,
we do need to say Franz.
Yeah, Franz. We
do need to like say, like,
I don't want to dismiss it, but he's just the easy choice.
Honestly, like, I've gotten to this point where, like, I'm doing my podcast, I'm doing all my writing. It's just like I can't keep writing about Franz. Like we are getting to a point where we take this for granted, and I think all of us hoped Franz had this in him. None of us knew. We wanted to see Franz like get this out of him, or at least try to get this out of him. And he was always so content to be in the background and just kind of be a supporting player and not be the guy that takes over. And Paolo's injury forced him to take over. I think Jamal Mosley said at one point, we've asked him to do something he's uncomfortable with. And the fact that he's thriving at that, like, you can't put that genie back in the bottle. Like, he is, like, we all thought he could be an all-star, but he is an all-star this year. That's going to happen. He's just taken such a gigantic leap in his game and his ability to create. Again, you can't put that genie back in the bottle. This is who he is. And even when Paolo's back, this is who he is. But to get to your question, I think the thing that I've been most encouraged by is Anthony Black. The player I've been most encouraged by is Anthony Black, because
he's been huge.
The biggest question I had for this team was losing Markelle Fultz. I think was a bigger deal than people were making it out to be.
And Joe Ingles.
And Joe Ingles, but
for similar reasons, I think.
But Markelle Fultz is a stabilizer. He's a good defender. He's a natural point guard. He knows how to manage a game. And to turn that over to not only a second-year player, but a second-year player who played virtually no point guard as a rookie. Like, he brought the ball up, but then he passed it off to Franz or Paolo and went to the court. His usage rate was like 12% his rookie year. Like, just not
minimal,
not taking any shots. And to see him come around and be a major factor for this team off the bench, to be a surprisingly confident shooter, like that shot he made against the Pacers in the 50-point game for Paolo, like, that was a gutsy shot. Like, that was, Anthony Black doesn't even think about taking that shot last year. He's actively trying to avoid getting the ball in that situation last year. And we've seen him have these humongous games. Like, you could tell, like, even the Magic, his teammates are like, you can do more. We want you to do more. And he's like not quite yet comfortable with it. But you could see why the Magic really liked him. You could see how he's elevated his game and how he can help this team in a major way down the road. And he's just been so impressive this year.
He has been, defensively, he's already one of the best defenders in the league. As a guard, as a wing, he's incredible.
And he's like third on the team. We need to you're like fourth best defender on this team, but he's one of the best defensive guards in the league.
It's pretty insane. And then you have, like I said, like you were saying, his offensive ability to just like run all these different sets that are being run, be a controller, slowing things down, making the right passes, we saw him not have anything run for him, and now we are seeing him have a lot of stuff run for him, and he's making the right decisions. Our friend Fazan does an awesome job breaking down different plays and how, like, you'll see Anthony Black in the same game run the same different type of, 77 or stack screen, a pick and roll, and it'll have 3 different outcomes because Anthony Black is just reading the court differently each time. Sometimes it's him driving and kicking out. Sometimes it's him driving and taking advantage of it, or like doing a hockey pass or something. It's like he's really, really excelling in decision making within the plays that this team is running. Listeners, if you haven't done so already, go check out Fazan. He does really good stuff if you want to learn more about X's and O's. But yeah, I couldn't agree more with you, Philip. Like, that kid is going to be pretty awesome. I still think there's a little bit more offensively. He's got to get that shot figured out. It dipped more than I was hoping for. Granted, he was at such low volume last year. Not even won a game, but was hitting threes at 40%, 39%. This year he's at 28%. So it's like there are some things I hope gets figured out going into the next season, because it's probably not going to happen right now. But he's been awesome. Which kind of like piggybacks into my answer, where it's like his connection that he's been developing with other players, particularly Mo Wagner, is been really impressive, right? I'm not huge on Mo Wagner. I think that's probably pretty clear for anyone that's been following me or listening to me. But he has been like, and I was really worried about how he was going to play without Joe Ingles, as many people were. And now they have I think he passes, I think Anthony Black is like top 2, I think Mo Wagner and Anthony Black have like the second best connection as far as assist to scoring ratio on the team. And like, they've really started to find their chemistry with each other, and it's really awesome to see. And, Mo Wagner, he's my player that I've been surprised about, because he's just been so good offensively for that second unit. Like, outside of the Anthony Black, is the only one that can kind of like create his own shot, like make something out of nothing. If the offensive scheme gets broken down by the defense, when that happens, he's like, cool, I'll do the worst pump fake in the world, and then I'll drive to the basket, but it'll get us points, or I'll get to the free throw line, or, I have a mismatch, I'll take advantage of it. That has just been really fun for me to watch. And I'm still going to have my hater things for it, but that's for other reasons. But I'm also starting to sing his praises pretty consistently now, and it's been a lot of fun to have that. So he is my surprise player of the team so far. That is not Franz Wagner. Obviously, Franz, he is all-star, maybe all-NBA. He might be hitting that supermax on his contracts, which good thing, bad thing, good problems to have. I mean, I guess it's good if he sustains it, which I think he can. But yeah, Mo Wagner, his brother, has been my surprise player. Yeah, man, this quarter has been fun. They've gotten pretty lucky with some scheduling. The whole league has gotten lucky with scheduling, with how many injured teams there are out there. But the Magic also haven't played a ton of teams above 500.
Also, being in the East helps.
And in the East, you're right. But when they went out West, they also took care of business, which is really nice. Now, let's pause for a second. In a moment, we're going to get to the upcoming matchup versus the Knicks and talk about some NBA Cup stuff. But I want to talk a little bit so the Magic have had 2 6-game winning streaks since Paula went out. They've lost 1 game in the middle of those 6-game winning streaks, and that was to Los Angeles Clippers. That was just a one-off game, clearly, because they've, in that they've beaten some decent teams. They beat injured teams, but decent. The Lakers, the Phoenix Suns. I can't really call 76ers a good team right now.
The Magic have beaten 3 teams that currently have a 500 record or better, and that's the Heat, who lost Sunday night to the Raptors to fall back to 500. Suns, who they beat without Bradley Beal and Kevin Durant. And the Lakers, which was a really good win on the second night of a back-to-back. It
was a great win.
Those are your 3.
The schedule gets a lot harder now, right?
Yep.
They come up on Tuesday versus New York. Then they have 2 games versus Philadelphia. That team is starting to get healthy. Still kind of a shit show, but healthy. Phoenix is healthy. They are going to have them at Kia Center. They have Oklahoma at Kia Center. They have Boston. They have New York. They have the next 10, 15 games, you're playing a lot harder of competition. There's definitely still, the Brooklyns are mixed in there.
As we saw, Brooklyn's not so easy.
They're not so easy. The Pistons are in there. Granted, that's at the turn of the year. It's the end of this year is not going to be, you're going to see the Heat twice. They've been cooking a bit. So there's definitely some stiffer competition that they're going to start playing. And I think we're going to learn a lot. What are you looking? I mean, we still probably have a few more weeks without Paulo, potentially the end of the month. I'm not sure. We should get an update, I'd imagine, in the next week-ish. But when you're looking at this, let's assume we don't have Paulo for a little bit longer. What is something that you're hoping to see that we might still not have the answer from this first quarter of the season?
Yeah, I mean, I think the point that I just made, the Magic only have 3 wins against teams with records above 500 or 500 or better right now. And look, that's not their fault. It's the schedule they played. They went out on that West Coast. They went out on that on that 5-game road trip where Paulo got hurt. Paulo got hurt very early in that road trip. They weren't kind of in a mental state to compete against those teams. But, I still think some of that is instructive. And so we know this defense is going to play and going to play well. We know this defense is going to give them a chance to win. You talk about the one game that they've lost, it was against the Clippers. Clippers are probably the only top 10 defense, or certainly the only top 5-ish defense that they played in the last couple of weeks. And we know that this team is still very offensively challenged. And so obviously, this is a continuing problem. Again, it's not like the Magic don't have big wins. They beat the Celtics last year. They beat the Cavs last year. They've beaten good teams. But last year, among teams that made the postseason, the Magic had the second worst record against teams with 500 or better records, with winning records. So this was a slight problem last year. It's not bad to beat the bad teams. You have to stack up wins against the bad teams. But if you want to be taken seriously, if you want the attention that I know a lot of Magic fans want, you got to beat these good teams. You got to go out and beat New York in an NBA Cup game on the road. You got to go out in the NBA Cup and show yourself well in that quarterfinal game, whoever you're playing, wherever you're playing. When you play Boston back in your place, over Christmas, you got to be competitive and win that game. The Magic talk about it all the time. You got to defend home court. Yeah, they got to defend home court. They got to prove they can win a little bit on the road. I know that December is much more home heavy, which I think is going to help them and help build that confidence because, the Magic are a tougher team to play at home. They shoot the ball a whole lot better at home. But the Magic still got to prove themselves. I think people are still shocked that they're third in the East, and they've earned that record. They're, winning 12 of 13 is really hard in this league. I think it was the Dante Marcatelli stat during the broadcast that only the only 5 teams before this one in Magic history have had a stretch like this where they've won 11 of 12. And they are 95, 96, 2009, 2010, 2006. And that 2016 made an incredible run at the end of the season to nearly backdoor their way into the playoffs. But these are the elite teams that do this. The Magic are in that conversation. But just like that 09 team, we weren't really sure how serious they were until they went out west, beat the Lakers in Los Angeles, that big game from Jameer Nelson. And then it was okay, this team is real. Franz Wagner hitting that shot against the Lakers, there's a reason that got more national notoriety. It's because the Lakers are a good team. It's because they're the Lakers. Yep. The Magic got to prove they can beat some of these teams. They got national TV game Tuesday. For whether those games mean more or not, they mean more. I'm sorry, they do. You got national TV game against the Knicks on Tuesday. You got the Celtics on national TV on the road in December, I believe. Or maybe that game's in January, excuse me. You got to be able to beat these teams because at the end of the day, no one's going to judge you on what you do in the regular season. That's great. You're the third seed in the East. That means you're expected to get out of the first round. That means you're expected to be competitive in the second round. At the end of the day, you got to be able to beat these really good teams. And the Magic certainly showed they could last year. They got Cleveland to 7 games. That wasn't a fluke. They played them well in the regular season too. Now they got to show that, okay, we can beat these good teams and beat them regularly. And that puts you in a new stratosphere where people have to start saying oh, maybe they could be a backdoor title team. Maybe they are more ready than we thought. And that's going to be the big question, I think, for the Magic over the next month or so of the season.
Yeah, I agree with that. They do have to beat these better teams, and they're going to have a 7-game homestand to do that. During the 7-game homestand in December, they're going to be playing the healthier Phoenix Suns, the Oklahoma City Thunder, which is healthier, Miami Heat twice, Boston, New York, and then Brooklyn to round it out at the end of the year, the last game of the
Then I believe they go out west.
December. Then they go out. They'll go out west.
But we knew this
When do
was
they
going
go
to be the
out
hardest
west?
part of the schedule.
Yeah, they actually don't
Like
have.
this-
They don't go out west until January.
Till January, yeah, that's just,
Yeah.
yeah. But like we
So,
knew, like when the schedule
huge.
came out, we knew this stretch in December through early January was going to be very, very difficult, and we'd learn a lot about this team. So the Magic took care of their business in the first quarter of the season. We can complain about that 5-game losing streak when Paolo was out all we want. The Magic took care of their business. They put themselves exactly where they want to be in the standings. But like last year, the Magic were 14-7 through 21 games too. And then in December and January, they hit a little bit of a rut. They hit some injuries. They were scuttling around 500. They fell down in the standings and recovered.
Yeah,
They don't want to do that again. Like
No.
that's part of this whole thing. So will they take maybe a step back? Perhaps because the schedule
Maybe.
tightens up a little bit. But
it's nice they
This
gave
is-
themselves this cushion, though.
yeah. And this quarter of the season is going to be where we figure out, okay, are they really that team, or are they going to have to scramble and fight to get what they want, which is home court advantage in the playoffs?
Before we transition to the Cup and Knicks game coming up, I want to kind of like round this out with, just a continuation. Like, do you think they've learned, the front office has gotten enough data now about this team, or do you think they need to see kind of this next stretch when they play harder teams to see how they might approach the trade deadline? Now, granted, it's not trade deadline season. Teams aren't really, they're always
15
talking,
days,
but they're not
15
talking.
days, man.
15 days, but it's still not real. Like, a lot of
Yeah.
people aren't doing their actual
Magic aren't
business
desperate to do
until
anything, yeah.
yeah, they're not desperate. They're not going to go out and make a trade at the beginning of December or middle of December in 15 days. But they might, it could influence how they act in January, February, whenever the deadline is.
Early February, yeah.
Yeah. So, do you think they've started to kind of think about that at this point, or their opinions have changed because of the success they're seeing without Paulo right now? Or do you think they're going to say, we really need, obviously I think the answer is they need to see more data, but like, what do you think the front office has learned about this team? I think is a better way to ask this question.
Yeah.
What do you think the front office has learned about this team in the first 20?
I think what we talked about earlier, this team has taken a step up. They have gotten better. They have improved. They look like a team that can naturally improve. The kind of team that doesn't need the injection of something. And ultimately, like when you get to the trade deadline, the question you're really asking is what are our goals and can we achieve our goals? And look, if you're a fan out there and you're thinking the Magic should be trying to win a championship this year and should be kind of selling out to go for a championship, then the Magic probably need to do something. But that's not how this front office thinks. The Magic are still trying to thread a very fine needle. They're trying to be a team that is winning now. Like, they are winning. Like, that isn't changing. That isn't going anywhere. They are winning. And they should expect to win. They should be trying to win. But they're also an extremely young team, and they're seeing young players get better. And so, like, look, I'm the Magic guy. Everyone at Thanksgiving knows I'm the Magic guy. I had every family member asking me, like, what are the Magic going to do? Should they go after this player or this star player? Or this is the star they should be kind of circling and getting ready for. And I'm like, yeah, that's all well and good, but I don't think they want another star. They don't want to take the ball out of Paolo and Franz's hands. They don't want a backup point guard that can take the ball out of Anthony Black's hands. They're okay going through mistakes. And that's a weird thing to say for a team that's a 3 seed in the East or trying to be a home court advantage team. But that's the realities. With the Magic, like, if the Magic do anything, I think they're thinking, let's let this thing cook. It's been cooking really, really well. It's coming along nicely. We don't need to add any spices to this. It smells great. Let's just let this thing simmer in the crock pot for a little bit. The things that they could do could be very small. Like, I could see them, if they're more confident in Jet Howard or they find a better piece out there, trading Gary Harris and that Denver first that they may not want to use for a player that could help them more immediately or help them in the medium term. I don't see them touching the starting lineup. I don't see them doing anything to block the development of their key players. So that's Paolo, Franz, Jalen, and probably Anthony Black are probably the 4 players that like actually matter on this team. I don't see them doing anything crazy because it's working. Now, a lot can happen between now and February. We got 2 months before the trade deadline. A lot can happen. So maybe something does happen, or they're like, okay, we if we're going to compete the way we want to compete, we absolutely need to go get this and spend a little bit of our assets to get there. So far, I don't think that has materialized or developed yet. And so I think the Magic are happy to let this team cook, see what happens in the playoffs, see what holes they need to fill again in the playoffs, and then attack it in the offseason with a little bit more aggressively to get them over that hump.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think they're going to do anything wild or crazy. I don't think the starting lineup is going to change. You know, the starters are going to change through a trade. I do think they I do think there could be like an upgrade in that second guard unit a little bit. Go get someone to pair next to Anthony Black, and maybe it takes a little bit of usage away from him. But like if you were to go get like Colin Sexton,
that's the guy I'd look at,
or Malcolm Brogdon or something like that. Like the ball is going to be in. It might shift a little bit, but a little bit of off ball usage might be good for his long term development as well at some point, right? As long as you find the balance right, you don't want to change it completely. But I think that's where you could, because we can look at Gary Harris and Cole Anthony, and they're clearly the guys that
they're the odd man out at this point.
It doesn't take rocket science to know that's where you got to kind of make an upgrade there, right? Jet's cool, but he's also a player that's
he looks like a rookie.
He looks like very much a rookie, and it's his second year, right? So there's some things that I think they could speed up the process there a little bit. Doesn't mean they necessarily have to go do it right now. They could also handle it in the offseason. But at the same point, the East is the East. They also might say, we could actually be a threat in the second round. Like, could we have a run that Indy had last year if we get our matches up right and have home court advantage? Like, maybe it does make sense to go be a little bit more aggressive, because I can't sit here and think they're going to use both first round picks. And I think they also have 2 second round picks this year in the draft too. Yeah. It's like, they're not using all those. Could they use some of that capital to make some moves to make some more immediate improvements? Maybe. This is probably a conversation that you and I are going to have in a month from now, where we have more information. We're getting a little bit more, rumor heavy with the Magic.
I don't like to think about trades until trade season opens on December 15th. We're still figuring who this team is out is.
And it's really not about the trade. It's more about what has the front office learned or what they're thinking, right? I
mean, look, Paolo Banchero's absence has revealed this team a little bit. Like the fact that this team is still thriving and figuring things out without Paolo, tells you they have a lot more in them. And now it's like, okay, you play the way you played without Paolo. Like now Paolo's in the mix. Like, yeah, you have to let him get some of his ISOs and get some of his touches, but you can still do all of this with Paolo in there. Like honestly, those first few games without Paolo, I was disappointed, not in the offense. I expect the offense to take a nosedive.
Totally.
But the defense wasn't where it was. I was just like, look, Paolo is not a bad defender, but he's not the crux of the defense. Yeah. The defense should still be elite without him. And it, took them a little while to get their feet back under them. But once they did, the defense has remained elite. Now it's on Paolo to maintain that. Like this team is playing at such a high level. So it's just like, okay, we've learned that, there are players who could fill in and do what this team needs them to do. And even without Paolo, and hopefully they'll still be able to do that when Paolo's back.
Yeah, I think so. I'm hoping it's really cool that Paolo is seeing the success that this team is having, that Franz is having, because I think it's just going to allow him to kind of view things a little bit differently when he does get back in. And how do we capitalize on having this guy who he probably knew was a baller, but he's here. He is here, and he's not going anywhere. And he's going to make an all-star team that I might not make this year because I've missed too many games, right? If he comes back and just destroys it for a month and a half, he might make it. But
you got to remember that Paolo was really good. Yeah, it was really good before the injury.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens, but I am looking forward to Paolo getting back hopefully sooner than later. I'm looking forward to the update that hopefully we have sooner than later. Should be fun. Now, I think that kind of wraps up my quarter season overview of how we're feeling, what we've learned, stuff that surprised us. The Magic have a huge game on Tuesday. This podcast is going to be released tomorrow morning on Monday. So Magic fans have a full day and a half to listen to you and I talk about. You guys should probably replay this conversation. It's that important. But to talk about this massive game. And it's massive for so many reasons, right? Like, massive for a reason you mentioned earlier. It's a game the Magic are playing above for a team that's above 500, right? It's the third and fourth seed team versing each other in the East for the first time this season. It's the NBA Cup last group play game that is going to decide who's going to earn their spot and who's going to be the wild card in the NBA Cup. It's also a game that national television and the NBA decision makers took off the national TV schedule when back on. The New York Knicks are currently sitting fourth in the East. They have where's my standings? They have a record of 15-7. 12-8. The Magic have a record of 15-7. So there's a little bit of cushion there. But if the Magic lose this game, that will close the gap a little bit. Also will affect again the NBA Cup.
Season series.
It is a series for sure. And something else, I just want to bring a couple of quick statistical things. First, the Knicks, they're number one in the league in offense at 121.1 rating. And defensively, they are not number one. They are a bottom 10. They are 22nd in the league defensively with 114.6 defensive rating, which is a little bit of a shocker considering this is a Tom Thibodeau team and he is known for his defense, and they are sucking defensively. And they have some really good defenders or people in theory should be good defenders like Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby. And yeah, those two guys. Basically, that's it. Josh Hart, he's a good defender too. But anyways, that's my rant. We have this big game on Tuesday. There's so many reasons why it's big. What is the first thing that's to your mind that when you look at this matchup, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you look at this matchup?
I mean, when I look at this matchup, it's Madison Square Garden. It's TNT. It's
in New York.
It's a game that has stakes beyond just this individual game. Like, it's an NBA Cup game where for New York, it's win in advance. For the Orlando, it's the chance to get a home NBA Cup game, to create this playoff-like atmosphere for an NBA Cup game and really give they're 9-0 at home. Like, the Magic have not lost at home yet. Give the fans another big game in their place. And that's always a good thing. Look, we talked kind of endlessly about this before we got on air. I'm a big fan of the NBA Cup. I think it's fun. I think it's important. Obviously the Magic don't need this game as much as the Knicks do, but when you're looking at a young team, but like the NBA Cup to me is built for young teams like the Magic. It is built for teams who don't have a lot of playoff experience to go out there and feel a little bit like what the playoffs are like. If not in the intensity and the atmosphere of it, then in the pressure that comes with it and knowing that, you don't get to do something, or you don't get to advance if you don't play well. And look, the Magic are in a funky position where all they have to do is not lose by 30 and they advance. They have done their work already to give themselves a wide cushion to fall on if they don't have a good day. And in a single elimination tournament like that, that's all you can ask for. Now, I'm sure the Magic would rather host the Celtics than have to travel to Atlanta for that NBA Cup game. Actually, it'd probably be traveling back to New York for that NBA Cup game because Milwaukee's probably going to be, if Milwaukee beats Detroit, they'll be the 1 seed in that instance. It's big because I think the Magic are still trying to establish themselves. Like you see, like Bleacher Report finally posted like the Magic have won 12 of their last 13 games. Every single Magic player on Instagram has been reposting it with that kind of sense of like, oh, now y'all notice. Now y'all are talking about us. The Magic, they're young, they're brash. We can't pretend that everyone doesn't hear what everyone's saying online. Especially with young people who live online, who are chronically online. They want to, I think, make a big statement. And so to make this kind of a statement on, with a chance to win a trophy on national TV in the world's most famous arena when they just got a big win at crypto.com, which is probably the second most famous NBA arena. This is a big game. This is a big statement game for a team. It's frankly a statement of intent. Like, it's still so early in the season. It's hard to say anything is permanent or anything means much at this point because there's just so much left to go this season. And the Magic are going to see the Knicks 2 or 3 more times. I forget how many times they'll see them. But this is a statement of intent to say, you have to take us seriously. Take us seriously. We're not going anywhere. And I think that's something the Magic really want to do.
Yeah. I mean, they've taken every cup game pretty seriously so far. I mean, this team has taken every game they've stepped into pretty seriously so far. I think there's been a couple of games you could maybe, like the Clippers game, you're like, yeah, were you really in it that day? Like, it was just like an off day. I don't know what happened, but outside of that, like most of the time, this team is unprepared, looking like
outside
they've
of the
taken
games,
a
like
step
immediately after the Paolo injury.
Yeah. Not including those. Those all have asterisks to them, anyways, because again, on the road, huge injury to the team, no real moment to like reset, but they're looking to make a statement, and I agree with everything you said there as for all the reasons why. I look at this matchup particularly, and I see the offensive rating and the defensive rating, and I look at the last time the Magic tend to actually match up pretty well against teams that are kind of the reverse of them, where it's Magic are a great defensive team, but not a great offensive team. And it's the reverse of this. Like the Lakers, they were a top 3 offense, a bottom 6 defense during that, when they met up during that game a couple weeks ago when Franz had the winner. That was a good game for them. Obviously, the last game of the night, in Los Angeles, a lot of eyes are going to be on that game regardless, even if it wasn't on national TV. It's just, I think they're going to match up well, and I'm hoping that they put on a show, and it's, the Magic are competitive and really throwing it down. Versus the Knicks, matchup-wise, what's something you think this team has to look out for?
I think the biggest thing is the Magic have been really good this year at preventing 3-point shots, like 3-point attempts. But I don't think they, outside of like Miles Turner with the Pacers, I don't think they have played a center that can stress their defense and go 5 out like Karl-Anthony Towns can. And a lot of the Magic's defense is about protecting the paint. They like to kind of collapse the paint, put a lot of pressure on the paint, like bring 2 to the ball in the paint, and then scramble out to the 3-point line. And so New York has shooters, like whether it's Jalen Brunson, whether it's Karl-Anthony Towns, OG Anunoby can hit threes, Mikal Bridges, even though he's been wonky with the shot this year. They are a team full of shooters and full of guys that can make you pay for leaving them open. And I think, I think we've seen this when the Magic faced Boston on several occasions. Like, you can switch all you want. If the Magic start with defending the paint and really bottling you up in the paint. If there's not a guy in the paint to occupy a Goga Batadze or Wendell Carter, then this defense can get stretched out a little bit. And so that's my big concern in this game is we haven't seen a pure 5-out offense go up against this defense very often. Again, Miles Turner is the best example, and the Magic did okay with that. Like Turner had some big games, had a couple bad games, but it's going to be interesting to see how the Magic try to attack Jalen Brunson, Karl-Anthony Towns pick and rolls, and how they work to keep players out of the paint so they don't have to get caught in rotation and bank on 3-point luck at the end of the day. Because if it comes down to 3-point shooting, New York's going to win.
Yeah.
And so Orlando's got to find a way to keep up on that.
This is where I'm glad that we finally have Wendell Carter back, because he is a better perimeter defender than Goga, in my opinion. And I think he'll be able to handle Karl-Anthony Towns a bit better on the perimeter when those moments happen. Again, we'll see. They play 5 out, so there's probably going to be plenty of moments where Goga is also having to, guard the perimeter a bit more. But I'm looking forward. I'm thankful that we have that option now in that depth, and then that we've had a few games where Goga and Wendell Carter have played next to each other with some pretty good success. I'm going to shout out my friend Malik Grady today, who's been really monitoring this stuff, and he's pointed out that as of today, Goga and Wendell have played a total of however many minutes, 56 total minutes together over 3 games, which is not a ton of minutes, but it's better than nothing. During those minutes, they've had 137.8 offensive rating, 89.2 defensive rating. It's like, it's kind of small sample size. I don't know if that actually means anything right now, but I think it's just encouraging that this team's had some data, and they're going to be able to use some of this, hopefully, to slow down Cat, who has been the Knicks' best player so far this season.
Yeah, and look, it's going to be interesting. Like Jalen Brunson is still the kind of player that can beat good defense.
Totally.
Like they'll throw Jalen Suggs at him. They'll throw Kentavious Caldwell-Pope at him. They'll switch on every screen with him.
Throw Black on him.
He is going to beat good defense. Like, Anthony Black got caught in a blender last year. His last trip to Madison Square Garden, he got caught in a blender. Brunson got hot, and the game was over in the first quarter. So it's going to be interesting. Again, it's not quite a playoff intensity. I think the NBA wants these games to feel like it, but it's going to take a big game from Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns because New York doesn't have a lot of depth either. And that's going to be a big factor in this game as well, is can the Magic dominate those minutes when Brunson's out of the game, when Cat's out of the game? Can they dominate the minutes when the lineup has to break and force New York to play 48 minutes, play guys like 38, 39 minutes because the Magic are going to wear you down. Like that's been the thing. Like Orlando's whole MO is the first quarter, they kind of feel you out and you might get some punches on, you might land some punches on them. But as the game gets older, as the game gets longer, they tighten that grip. They make their adjustments. They make their tweaks. And all of a sudden you find yourself in the fourth quarter and you can't move. And that's kind of how the Magic get you.
Yeah, it's going to be fun, man. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm hoping that we see this team continue to just stay level, stay prepared, not let the moment get ahead of them, which I don't think they will. They haven't shown any signs of that so far this season. If anything, they've shown, like we've talked about, that they're prepared for these moments. We've been talking about it since the start of this podcast. It's that they've learned, they've grown from what they learned last year, and this is just an opportunity. Like I remember the last time the Magic played in Madison Square Garden, it was towards the end of last season when the Magic were in a seeding race for the playoffs, and it was not a good showing. We all knew this has got to have playoff implications.
Suggs, though.
Yeah.
Important note modification.
Important note, but it was still the team got embarrassed in New York, right? Yeah. Then pretty quickly embarrassed in Indy during another big playoff game. But again, almost playoff game. But anyways, the point I'm trying to say is they got their butts kicked the last time they were in New York City, and I'm hoping that they want to come and kind of let people forget about that and remind them that they're here, they're real, and they're going to earn a spot in the NBA Cup tournament outside of group play and not have to go through the wild card, which will be really, really exciting. Yeah. So anyways, Philip, we've been talking for 48 minutes. It's late. We even started this podcast late because we ranted for 30 minutes before we even hit record about the NBA Cup in general, which we probably should have recorded that too, but that's okay that we did. Anyways, thank you for coming on the show. I really want to appreciate it. I love having basketball conversations with you. I'm surprised it took us this long to connect, but let's make it happen again real soon. And I hope you and I are both texting each other on Tuesday after a Magic win, which would be a lot of fun. Remind the fans where they can find you and what you got going on.
Yeah, the best place to find me is, of course, on my podcast, Locked On Magic. I'm Monday through Friday, so always reliable. Wherever you download podcasts, as well as on YouTube, you can find my written work at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. And if you're so inclined, my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub, where I have a little extra detail, do some video reviews, and some tape study as well. So you can check that out at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub.
I say this every time. It's one of the best Patreon programs out there in the Magic community. Go sign up. Appreciate you jumping on the show. I'm going to let you go because it's now almost midnight. I appreciate you. Let's go Magic.
Yep, let's do it.